Welcome to another edition of Wealth Without Borders podcast. And today I'm delighted to have Nick Obolensky with me. Hello, Nick.
Hello there, Howard.
And where are you in the world, Nick? And what's the weather like?
At the moment, I'm in Shanghai, China, and the weather is a little cloudy. I think we're going to get some rain later on, but it's quite warm, 30 degrees.
Okay, well, I'm in Shanghai too, so we'll meet for a cup of tea afterwards. And
be good.
Great. The podcast title today is Uncertainty, Deal or No Deal. And for those of you who don't know Nick, he's had many years' experience of leadership in VUCA, and he'll be explaining what that is in a minute for those of you who don't know, in a context as practitioner. And as a matter of interest, he was the youngest major in the British Army and a FTSE 100 director in charge of a truly massive turnaround. He's an academic, he's an author, and he's a consultant. Welcome again, Nick.
Thank you, Howard.
And you know this, I believe. We're going to do 8 questions in 8 minutes. I'm pretty strict. I've got a little stop clock here. I will do my best to give you the time remaining after or before each question. So are you ready to rock?
Certainly am.
Okay, brilliant. Question number 1, 8 minutes. Who is your ideal client?
So the ideal clients that we work with, and we have 2 companies, one in China and one in the West, are individuals as well as organizations who are, let's say, struggling with VUCA environment. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Okay, excellent. And then perhaps you can expand a little bit on VUCA, VUCA, with question number 2, 7 minutes 34. What is the problem that you solve?
So the problem that we solve is how to enable leaders and organizations to get better results faster with less effort, less cost, and less stress in highly uncertain and dynamic environments. And because people don't understand fully complexity science and how that works, we bring that science to bear and we get better results much faster. Fantastic.
Sounds like I probably need that, Nick. 7 minutes remaining. Question number 3. What are the typical symptoms that people experience who have that problem?
Well, I think the typical symptoms, Howard, is that because most people only have, let's say, a deterministic scientific mindset, they like to plan, they like to get results through premeditated action, determining what's going to happen using deterministic science. When they apply that to a complex dynamic environment, they find that they get overwhelmed with information, they're very stressed, they are uncertain, and also they tend to try and stay on top of everything and have a sneaking suspicion there might be another way.
Okay, fantastic. 6 minutes 17 remaining. You've kind of answered aspects of this question. Question number 4, what are the common mistakes people make when they're trying to solve that problem, perhaps in addition to staying on top of everything?
Well, I think the common mistake is they try to overanalyze and get as much information they can before making decisions. They're very slow in making decisions. Now, when things are simple or complicated, that's fine. You can have the time to do that. But when things are very dynamic and complex, you've got to probe, you've got to make fast decisions, and you've got to do that without all the information and be happy to try things out. And as soon as things work, you push. When they fail, you pivot.
Okay, so it's a paralysis analysis. It sounds a little bit like that. Question number 5 with 5 minutes 30 remaining. What's one valuable free action that the people checking out the show today can implement? It will help them solve some of that problem, obviously not all of it.
Well, I think the first thing is to stop and think. Get off the hamster wheel, stop and think, step back and look at what you're dealing with. Is what you're dealing with simple? In other words, a high degree of predictability. You know what's going to happen if you follow a process. Are things complicated, i.e. cause and effect are there, but you need analysis that could be like corporate strategy? Or do you have the suspicion that things are complex, i.e. they're very dynamic, and by the time when you've done the analysis, things have changed? Stop and think, what are you dealing with? Once you've identified what you're dealing with, then you apply the strategy that gets results.
Fantastic. 4 minutes 37 remaining. Question number 6. What's one valuable free resource that you can direct people to that will further help them with their problem?
Well, there's a couple of things. Firstly, on our LinkedIn company page, as well as on my profile page, there's a few articles that people might find interesting in terms of how to lead and get better results, as well as a case study in terms of how self-organization can get better results. And also anybody who's listening, if they want to get a copy of the book, Complex Adaptive Leadership, if they email me directly, I'll send them a public publisher's discount voucher where they'll get it for around half the price.
Excellent. And we'll give you all those links after the podcast. 3 minutes 50 remaining. Question number 7. What concept or book or program or talk has been most impactful in your own experience, Nick?
Well, this would go back to the 1980s when, as a young major, I was a combat team commander in charge of a combat team, which is a few hundred people, tanks, infantry, artillery, engineers, in an armored, dynamic, mobile warfare. When the strategy in Europe changed from positional to mobile defense, we had to experiment. And what I found is by pushing my decisions at the lowest possible level to get self-organization, things that would sometimes take 30 minutes would take 30 seconds. Quite astounding results. Nothing would explain how that worked until I read a book by James Gleick, and that book was called Chaos. And that was the first book that introduced me, if you like, to the whole science of complexity. And ever since then, I've been applying it and learning and researching it to get organizations to get better results.
Yeah, I remember being profoundly affected by that book too. And in fact, I've lived in chaos ever since, but I'm taking up some time. All right, just over 2 minutes 40 remaining. The last question, question 8. What's the one question I should have asked you that would give great value to our listeners today and people checking the show? And what's the answer to that question?
Well, I think one question that you could have asked, which you didn't, which is, so what? You know, what's the value? What's the payback? Where's the beef? You know, it's a nice idea, nice concepts, but, you know, in reality, and this is about wealth management, where's the wealth creation? Where's the value creation? And can you prove that? And the answer is yes, we can. Our programs are designed to get results and to create wealth and value for individuals as well as organizations. Our full 70-20-10 program, 10% is online or offline face-to-face workshops or online workshops. 20% is coaching and mentoring. 70% is application on the day job. Those programs get a 6-month payback on average, which is a pretty good return on investment. It's also the return not only on money, but also, for example, increased revenue, decreased cost, productivity. Not just about money, it's also about less stress, better work-life balance, better family life, better results for less effort. So that is the result, that is the return on these ideas when they're implemented in a VUCA environment: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Fantastic, which sounds as though we've got a little bit, 1 minute remaining, sounds as though that goes right back to the roots of that experience you had in really working from grassroots upwards and intensely.
Absolutely. And since then, as a strategy consultant, we've applied it for corporate strategy at the highest level. We apply it for leadership and talent development. And we move leadership from, let's say, 1.0, leadership done by leaders downwards, into a 4.0 dynamic, which includes 2.0 sideways, 3.0 leading upwards and being led by the people who follow you, into a dynamic called 4.0. And that means self-organization, which is higher, if you like, agility and much more ability to deal with a fast-moving, uncertain world. And that's what this is all about. Fantastic.
Well, you've packed an immense punch in a very short time. So thank you so much, Nick, for being on the podcast. I'm sure our listeners will get really profound value from that.
Let's hope so. And if not, they can always read the book.
Exactly. All right. Thank you very much, Nick.
My pleasure.
Many thanks for checking out Wealth Without Borders podcast. I'd love you to head over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review. And if you'd be kind enough to do that, I would really appreciate it. And then if you want to know more about what I do, check out wealthwithoutborders.net.